A win is a win, so let's talk about it with Zack Tawatari. Brandon Scott from Sports Radio 610 is here. Man, solid gold. Well, gold and black, I like it, dude.
Man, I figured I had to come out and do something, man. If the Texans couldn't win in style, I figured at least I could tonight.
Nice.
You look like a classic Trans Am. I love it.
I'll take it.
And there he is, one of the original Texans, Seth Payne from Sports Radio 610 as well. Seth, the emoji board is ready for us, so which one are you picking with the help of Zack?
Zack, hit me with that befuddlement one. I think that's befuddlement. I don't know. The youngs can tell me whether I'm right or not. I left this game just, frankly, I'm greedy and I wanted more. I wanted them to slap down the Tennessee Titans. They're one of the worst teams in football, one of the worst scoring offenses, and they just couldn't get it going yet again until the fourth quarter. Barely. So I'm greedy. They're about to face three really good football teams, and I wanted to see a better debut going into that three-game stretch than what we just saw today.
Well, for me, it's going to be the eye roll because how many times are we going to see this? The Texans have only scored more than 20 points in 4 games this season, 4 out of 10. Today, they only scored 16. What is up with this offense?
Oh, man. Brandon?
I'm going to go with this guy because I'm sorry. I'm just sorry after watching this. I'm sorry for everybody that had to watch it. I'm sorry for myself. I'm sorry on everyone's behalf that had to be involved. And look, if you're a Texans fan, it's voluntary, but you don't feel like you can just eject or decommit from the whole process. But I'm sorry that we had to go through this. Do you realize that through the second half of both of these games, they've only scored 9 points between the two teams? It's ridiculous.
These are all good. I could make a case for this one, and this one. I'm going to go here as well, only because you have now played 8 quarters against the Tennessee Titans, and in 5 of those, you failed to score a touchdown against one of the league's worst teams. So that's what we're saying. And now here's what the Texans were saying after this one. For a team which wants to run the football, why could they not run the football in this game, Seth?
It's like anything else any of us want to do but might be physically incapable of doing. I'd like to run a 6-minute mile. It's never going to happen ever again in my entire life. And likewise, sometimes when you want to run the football, you still have to be physically able to do it. And this Texans offensive line, look, they have issues on the interior offensive line. The guy that's starting at left guard was on the bench while 2 other guys vied for the starting spot at left guard. And now both those guys are on the bench because you'd rather move Titus Howard down to guard and let a 375-pound guy coming off of a patellar tendon tear play offensive tackle. They don't have an answer on the offensive line when it comes to running the football. And they've only got at any given time 2.5 guys that are capable of run blocking. So at some point, you got to abandon some of the things you want to do and accept reality. Set your childish things aside and accept what it means to be an adult. There's certain things you can't do.
Well, no, I don't want to be an adult yet, Seth. I want to be childish. I'm going to be childish about this thing. I don't understand how it is that they can't run the football other than the simple fact that kind of to Seth's point there, they're just not physically capable of doing it. That was what was really the frustrating part about them not being able to run the ball. Not the simple fact that they couldn't do it, but that it wasn't a play calling issue. It didn't look like it was a specific personnel issue beyond just the fact that these are the guys that you've got on your offensive line. So what is the answer for it? Like it's really tough to complain about something when you don't have readily available solutions, and I don't have them for them.
Yeah, we've run the gamut, right, on what the problem is with this line. Coaching changes, offensive coordinator, although the jury still may be out on that one a little bit. But still, we've run the gamut on all the things that could be wrong with this line. And I think at the end of the day, it's time to just say they don't have the guys. They just don't have them.
Well, Nick Caserio during the bye week, Seth, said, listen, we have 3 starting guys who started at tackle in the National Football League.
Right. No, and that's where it goes all the way back to offseason construction. They told us last year that the offensive line wasn't a problem. In the offseason, they proceeded to get rid of 3 starting offensive linemen, and then you brought in guys that they still don't feel good about. It's very clear, and that's where it gets tough to figure out how much to blame Nick Caley, how much to blame the coaching staff, how much to blame Nick Caserio for just not providing actual bona fide offensive linemen. When they go up against defensive lines that have guys like T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons, it's a real problem because they don't physically match up well to those guys. And the final drive there, when they were able to run the ball a little bit, T'Vondre Sweat wasn't in the game. But this is going 2 straight years. Remember, T'Vondre Sweat retired Shaq Mason basically by tossing him aside like he was a preschooler last year. And it's wash, rinse, repeat in some respects this year.
And you mentioned defensive line, the Texans. Yeah, they've got one. Last week it was Danielle Hunter. What did you see from Will Anderson this week?
Well, we saw Danielle Hunter again for 1.5 sacks. But Will Anderson coming up with the clutch play that put the Texans in position to go up by a full touchdown in this game.
And now it's time to look ahead to Buffalo Thursday, short week. Does that help the Texans or does that hurt the Texans?
Look, I don't think there's any other way to look at it than that it hurts the Texans, and Seth can speak to this better than anybody. But look, I've watched enough football to believe and to know that it probably takes a little bit longer than the 2 to 3 days that you get between Sunday and Thursday. But this is the schedule. There's not much that you can do about it. So I think it hurts the Texans. I also think that it hurts the Buffalo Bills, who also played on Sunday. So it's kind of an even thing. But the silver lining, I would say, is that on a short week, when your quarterback is less probable to go out there after the concussion protocol with C.J. Stroud, seeing Davis Mills go out there and be operational, seeing him go out there and be capable and competent, that's an encouraging sign and a silver lining in what is ultimately a negative thing in playing on a short week.
How do you feel about that, Seth?
I think the Texans would have at least one big disadvantage, but then one possible advantage. The disadvantage is that I think they're a better team with C.J. Stroud in there, as most teams are with their starting quarterback. But if CJ is going to come out of the concussion protocol, even if he were to come out tomorrow morning, it's very limited reps, very limited full speed reps to really get his timing back. On the plus side, the Bills' biggest weakness on their team, or one of their biggest weaknesses, is their run defense. So they're going to come out of a tough game versus the Bucs, where they were on the field a lot. They let up a lot of points. And that beleaguered run defense for the Bills might be a shot in the arm for that Texans offensive line that at the very least should be able to move the ball somewhat versus one of the worst run defenses in the league.
I think I might want to see Davis Mills ahead of C.J. Stroud this week. Just the fact that he's been playing and C.J. hasn't. How do you feel, Zach?
I think it's tough because obviously C.J.'s your starting quarterback.
Yeah.
You want him in the game, especially when you're playing Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills at home. But having said that, you know, this week is a bit of a disadvantage for the Texans in that sense. They don't get those couple extra days that maybe if CJ were to be ready, he could come back, he could practice, get some more reps, as Seth was saying. But at the same time, it's also, like Brandon said, a disadvantage for the Bills. So I think it kind of evens out for them in this instance, although it does, you know, kind of stink for them that it's a couple less days that they have to get CJ Stroud ready potentially.
And now when you look at the Texans defense, yes, it is still doing what it does, but how much is this defense missing Jalen Petrie?
Oh, I thought today there were a few distinct moments where either the offense was picking on Miles Bryant or just the overall cohesion in the defensive backfield as you've got multiple guys playing out of position. You flat out also missed Jalen Petrie's playmaking ability. So the guy with the concussion on the other side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball versus Josh Allen, especially in a guy where Josh Allen can pull it down and run, you want as many capable bodies in the backfield as possible to limit that. It's a big loss. You know, Jalen Petrie shows up every week, and it makes a difference, obviously. It's just you're down 2 guys now with MJ Stewart and Jalen Petrie in the defensive backfield. I would prefer to just be one guy.
Yeah, and I think certainly the Texans would love to have that wrinkle of Jalen Petrie blitzing against a guy like Josh Allen.
Yeah, and it absolutely matters because Jalen Petrie is just such a specific player. It's hard to replicate exactly what he does. Sort of a positionless, not sure exactly what he is, but he's just kind of a game wrecker when he's out there. So I think in the sense that he's not easy to replicate, he's very valuable, but also he's kind of a luxury item in that same way. I think that this defense is still a top 5 championship caliber defense, even if they're playing their base. Kind of to Seth's point about Miles Bryant being picked on, they would have to make some adjustments when they did go to their nickel defense. But even just playing their base, I think that they're pretty good.
And before the show, we were talking about Jaden Higgins. You feel like Jaden Higgins could be maybe an X factor moving forward?
It feels like something we've been talking about all season, about getting the rookies involved. At one point it was Jalen Noel. I know it's been Woody Marks, and we got to see him get a bulk of the carries the last couple of weeks and be the starter this week. But Jaden Higgins is the one that I'm looking at as somebody that this offense needs to unlock a little bit. Something that really stood out to me on the broadcast was hearing a mention of Davis Mills calling Jaden Higgins essentially a Nico Collins replica. Like a clone is what he said was the exact quote. And so, look, that's high praise for a guy that hasn't really done much in the league yet as a rookie. But if they really think that of him, if the backup quarterback thinks that of him, I would like to see them sort of apply that. And to me, if you can get at least one of these extra weapons, whether it's Jaden Higgins or Jalen Noel, whether it's Christian Kirk, I don't really care who it is, but I see it being Jaden Higgins, somebody beyond Nico Collins that you can rely on down the stretch.
And I think one thing is that people have wondered, hey, how come Davis Mills is having more success getting Nico Collins involved? It might just be that it's also as Jaden Higgins is emerging and Jalen Noel is emerging, that now there are more viable threats out on the field, and hopefully that's something they sustain after CJ comes back.
We are not done with this group here. No, we have much more ahead on Sports Extra, including the last penny has been pressed by the U.S. Mint. And now, is there something in sports you would like to no longer be produced? Seth, what about you?
I don't know if this is something that's produced or not. And unlike the penny, it's something that's relatively new to American sports. Flopping. Especially, and I'm not talking about the extreme kind that you can get fined for, any kind of flopping whatsoever. If anything, you should be rewarded for stoicism and suspended for at least 3 games for anything flopping that looks above and beyond what the natural action was. We've gotten to the point where offensive linemen are doing it. The last bastion of guys who are supposed to just be tough and not complain and whine and everything, even offensive linemen are doing it. Can't have it.
Brandon?
I'm a second Seth's point on the flopping. I can't argue with any of that, but I'm going to go a little bit outside the box here and go with Hall of Fame voting. This might feel a little bit sacrilegious coming from a sports writer, coming from somebody who very much values voting in this country at a very specific and important time. Yeah. But I'm still going against the voting of the sports writers for the Hall of Fame. I would like to see much more of a standard protocol for a guy to get in. Like, think about it. J.J. Watt and Tom Brady are going to go in the same year. Yeah. And, of course, they're going to go in as first ballot Hall of Famers. But what is there to talk about? What is there to present? What is there to vote on? And so I just don't like the idea that somebody that's a clear-cut Hall of Famer could be held out for any amount of time based off of the whims of a voter when some of it is just as clear-cut as day.
Interesting.
It's a good one.
Down with democracy. I'm
yes.
with ya.
That's right.
All right, here's what I would like to no longer be produced. City Connect, City Edition, some of these crazy jerseys that we're seeing, I'm just
what
done with them.
What do you got against fun, Jason? What do you have against
fun? They're not fun. Many of them are completely ludicrous. They don't even look, they're costumes. They're like something you would wear on Halloween. They're not uniforms.
You don't like a little spaceman on your jersey here or there?
The Dunkstronaut I like that one. But some of these other ones, they just are terrible. Oh. Like if you are the Green Bay Packers, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, the Steelers, you can make a case for nearly every sports team. Go back to one that you wore in the 70s or 80s. That is cool. Coming up with something out of thin air, not cool.
All right, mine, I want to get rid. I want this to not be produced anymore. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but it's close enough.
Oh, just go with it.
The cooling off period.
Cooling off period.
I'm done with it. I'm done with the cooling off period. Let's get the guys as they're coming off the field. I want the raw emotion. I want the scrum right there. Get them in the pads. We don't have to go in the locker room. Let them do their thing. Let them take as long as they want afterwards. But I want to make slot, and I want to be done with the interviews as soon as the game is over.
I was going to say, it almost sounds like a guy that does live television.
Enough with these cooler heads preveiled, huh? You don't want that.
No.
All right.
Let's get rid of divorce mediation, too.
On that note.
They want it on live cam.
Live cam. That's going to do it for Brandon Scott, Sports Radio 610, Seth Payne as well from Sports Radio 610. Guys, thank you so much tonight for being on Sports Extra.